where we ask leading social scientists and other experts to answer an intelligent question. In this episode, I ask, how do we stop knife crime? The story begins in Tottenham, North London, with a grieving mother.
At least 4 youths are thought to have been involved in the attack. Amherst Park is busy, even in the early hours of the morning. The family are urging anyone who knows anything to help them get justice for their son.
I'm Yvonne Lawson, and my son Godwin Lawson, at the age of 17, was stabbed in Stamford Hill, and he died within 2 minutes. So Godwin, just talking about Godwin, was a kind, warm, bubbly, very sporty young man, and had so much to live for. When he was 16, once he finished his GCSEs, he did win a scholarship. So he won a scholarship to play football at Oxford United Academy. So that means Godwin had to move away from London and live in Oxford, and he would occasionally come to London and visit family and friends. And 27th of March 2010, he arrived in London and would always go to Stamford Hill because that's where we used to live before we moved to Enfield. He met up with some of his old friends that he had known from secondary school, and Godwin would always refer to this time as his gossip time and catch-up time. As they were walking to one of his friends' house near Stamford Hill, there was a little bit of a fight because one of his friends, we got to know, had a problem with a few of the local boys. 4 of the boys saw Godwin's group. They parked on a side road and got out of the car and started to chase Godwin's group. One of them had a knife on him and started to stab all the boys. Godwin did run away from the scenery. For some reason, he decided to come back and stop the fight. At this stage, the boy that had a knife said, "It's nothing to do with you, stay away." As he was saying, stay away from stay away from this. The knife, unfortunately, just went to Godwin's heart. And with one stab wound, he didn't survive his injuries.
So Godwin was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, trying to protect his friends Daniel and Julian Borgia, who were both stabbed multiple times but survived. Yvonne was later told that it was a tragic culmination of a dispute over a girl. In 2011, Moise Avoga, aged 20 and from Tottenham, was jailed for life for Godwin's murder.
The judge told Avoga that he clearly started the attack and brought the knife to the scene. He sentenced him to a minimum of 19 years.
Yvonne told me how her son's death inspired her and her husband Calvin to set up a charitable foundation in Godwin's memory to try to stop knife crime.
To actually lose a child through such tragic circumstance is just beyond comprehensible. And for a police officer to actually knock on your door and tell you that your child has taken their last breath on the street it's just unimaginable. After going through that, that trauma and the helplessness and the sorrow, the sadness, I was quite intrigued about knife crime and just wanted to find out a little bit more why young people carry knives and why knife crime seemed to be on the rise. And the more I talked to young people, I was quite intrigued at how casually young people carried knives and how, knife crime was just closer than I thought. It was closer to my doorstep than I thought. And I guess I just, at that stage, wanted to do more. So the first reaction was I wanted to set a foundation in memory of Godwin.
Yvonne gave up her job as a primary school teacher to focus on the foundation's work. Her team works in schools and pupil referral units in North London to target children at risk, particularly those at risk of joining gangs.
Obviously, I was quite interested in early intervention prevention because that's one of the things that I talked about when Godwin lost his life, was just to find out from Godwin's teachers and to find out from his coaches whether they knew that Godwin was at risk, whether they knew that Godwin's friends that he was associating himself with was actually putting him at risk. And the more I talked to teachers, I did get to find out that yes, he was at risk, and yet nothing got done about it. So one of the things that we do is to speak to teachers and head teachers to find out those young people that are likely to be at risk of being victims and perpetrators of knife crime. So once that's identified, the teachers uses different sources of information for the identification. So a young person could be at risk, for example, because of where they live. They could be at risk because they've got a brother or sister already in a gang. They could be at risk, for example, because they might have a boyfriend or girlfriend already in a gang. So that information is already there. Once that's identified, we'll go in and work with those young people. We usually work with 10 young people at a time. And we work around activities, around their confidence building, leadership, decision making. So it's all the soft skills that's often kind of ignored in our curriculum. Almost like personal, social, emotional development. That's all the key areas that we really concentrate on. So we do that with young people for 6 months in a small group setting, away from the classroom setting. And after the 6 months, we would then take those young people on a residential weekend. So that would be a residential weekend away from their environment, for them to kind of see another life outside their local environment, because most of these young people are quite deprived and have very low aspiration. So they would then have a residential weekend, and then after the residential weekend, we would do one-to-one mentoring with those young people. So we've had real success stories in terms of those young people that could have been excluded and gone down the criminality way as a result of our intervention, actually stayed on at school and chose positive pathways.
Yvonne and other organisations working with children at risk have extraordinary success stories to tell. Yet violent knife crime offences across London and other cities keep rising. So what's going on?